Hey guys, welcome back here to KLINGSPOR Abrasives. I'm Landon Eisenhower.
I'm Luke Landon.
And we'd just like to welcome you to our 6th episode of Tech Talk. Today we have Luke here. He's going to help you understand random orbital sanders and just pneumatic tools in general. So towards the end, we will answer your questions that you have sent in to us over the past few weeks. So in the meantime, I do ask you that if you have a question you'd like to ask, send that in to techtalk@klingspor.com. and we'll answer it on an upcoming show or as soon as we can. So Luke, what exactly is a random orbital sander?
Great question, great question. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Landon. Random orbital sanders, it's a sander. It's a sander. Everybody's probably has one, they've probably seen one. Palm sanders, also referred to, but random orbital sanders are one of the most common ways of sanding. Takes a disc. Right. This is what we put our disc on. We got PSAs, Klingon versions of them, but in general, random orbital sanders, it's in the name. Unlike buffers and grinders, they'll just go in a circle. It's rotary, in a rotary motion. A random orbital sander not just goes around, but it goes up and down and in a random direction. You know, they did not take a lot of time to make a name for this. They just, it didn't take them a long time. So, if you can see on this, as it goes, up and down. We have a picture here. We have 3 different types of orbits. The 3 most common that are found out there in the abrasive world. The first one is a 3/8 orbit. This is known as the most aggressive orbit. It is there for very aggressive applications, heavy stock removals. The next is the 3/16 orbit. This orbit is the most common. Most of everything we have that we carry, most of the stuff that if you go down to your local hardware store or your local retailer, you're probably more than likely going to find a 3/16 orbit. Middle of the road, very good. The third one is a 3/32 orbit. This is a very tight, very fine applications are used 3/32. Most commonly used in the auto body industry when you're doing body work, maybe some glass work, things like that. Very, very fine applications. But you can see those pictures there. They go up and down, and those orbits are like that. The 3/8 orbit, I'll go ahead and mention it. Most of the times you don't see it very, very often. It is a very well-hidden type of tool because most of the time when you're doing something that rough and that aggressive, there's usually a better tool out there than a random orbital sander. Usually you lean towards like an angle grinder or something where you can be more aggressive, and when you're bearing down on that, it could cause some personal injury and things like that. But with these 3 different types of orbit, what each one does and each one has in common, as they're going in those random orbits, they're covering as much surface space as area. And as they're covering that area and going in circles with the abrasive on it, they're making little channels. So it's like digging your nails into the sand. It's making little holes like that in a microscopic way, but it is making channels, and as they go randomly, they're covering as much surface area as you can see. Most of the time, when you're first starting off a project and you put that first sandpaper or that first abrasive to something and you go over it one time, you'll see what we call swirl marks. You'll see the first case of those channels being made, that workpiece being abrased. And there's different ways. Everybody starts getting their own way of using a random orbital sander to cover up those swirl marks, as you see. But that is, in a very generalized, very quick way of what a random orbital sander is.
Very nice.
So, but random orbital sanders, not just the orbits, but they also come in different sizes. You can get, most common are 5-inch, 6-inch pads on them that take 5-inch, 6-inch disc, but they come with different motors, different brands, different sizes. But a good way of sub-categorizing these, there are 2 main types of sanders that are out on the market: electric and pneumatic. Pneumatic being that they run on air power, electric, DC, 220 volts, whatever you got. But here at KLINGSPOR, we carry, most of all the sanders that we carry, about 95% of them, are all pneumatic. And pneumatics have their advantages. and electric has their advantages. But pneumatic sanders they run a lot cleaner. They require a lot less maintenance, and they tend to last longer for people that are that use them more frequently than others. But we do have a video right here, and we'll go to it here. It's on pneumatic tools, not just sanders, but any kind of pneumatic tool. The best way to care for it, to make it last, and you get a lot more information on why pneumatic tools last so long, and most people prefer. Today, we're going to discuss pneumatic tools. More specifically, some good tips on how to take care of and maintain your tools. Pneumatic tools are tools that run on air power. They usually require less maintenance and will last a long time if properly taken care of. I have a random orbital sander right here. Every time I use this, I need to add air lube to it. The air lube is going to help lubricate the engine. Depending on how long I'm going to use this tool, determines how often I need to put the air lube into it. Just 2 to 3 drops right into the air inlet plug. The next part of the sander we want to talk about is the air inlet plug. Now, it is important to keep the plug free of debris. We don't want any dirt or any sawdust getting inside of this because it'll go straight to the motor. The other aspect of the plug we need to be aware of is the tape. We want to add tape to the plug to keep the air from leaking away. The next part of the sander that we want to discuss is the backing pad. It's important to keep the backing pad clean and running smooth. We don't want any kind of debris or dirt getting behind it. As you can tell from this sander, it's been used very often and hasn't been clean in a while. Another important part of the backing pad is the washer right above the thread. Sometimes it's a piece of plastic or a piece of cardboard, but it is very important because it keeps the metal from rubbing on the metal. Next, we're going to demonstrate on how to put a backing pad on correctly. Now, each sander should come with a tool. Now, these wrenches come in different sizes depending on what kind of model you have, what kind of brand you have. These are used for putting on backing pads. The last aspect of pneumatic tools we want to talk about is the airflow. All pneumatic tools require an air compressor and some kind of hose to connect to the tool to power them. We want to check the PSI at the tool every time before we use it. Most tools require between 90 and 100 PSI at the tool to use. Using an air gauge, we can tell where the PSI is. Some of the things that interrupt the PSI are leaks in the hose, an extra long hose, or multiple tools being used off the same air compressor at the same time. With proper maintenance and care, your pneumatic sander should last you a long time. When it does wear out or break, contact KLINGSPOR today.
So it's great information to know if you have sanders or if you're having issues from your sanders. So moving on, let's talk about the our main orbital sander here at KLINGSPOR that we offer.
Absolutely. Here at KLINGSPOR, we've had a long tenured partnership with Dynabrade. We still do, still ongoing. We carry the full line of Dynabrade pneumatic tools and a few of their electrics here and there. But they actually have, Dynabrade has 1 or 2 sanders that have our signature color and our logo on them. Their Spirit Sander and the Dynabug 2. They have a yellow casing on them, a housing on them with the KLINGSPOR yellow. As you can see, everything's yellow. We like it yellow. And the Dynabug 2 as well. But here in the last year, we have our own personalized Spartan. This is Spartan. This is our sander. This is the KLINGSPOR's own personal sander. We're offering this sander in a 5 and 6 inch hook and loop only, Kling-on only. But this is also a pneumatic sander, as just like Dynabraids are. This is a 3/16 orbit, the only way we offer it. But just like we said, that 3/16 is at normal to road. This is a great economical sander at a great price point that we offer only at KLINGSPOR. We have another video about this one. If we can get ready for that one, we're going to go talk a little bit more about the Spartan. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the newest addition to the KLINGSPOR product line. This is Spartan. The Spartan is a random orbital sander. If you're looking for an industrial sander at an outstanding price point, the Spartan is for you. The Spartan is a pneumatic sander, which means it runs on compressed air. It requires 90 psi to run effectively. Pneumatic sanders require less maintenance and offer a longer life. One feature that sets the Spartan apart is the variable speed option. It peaks at 10,000 RPM for most common sanding jobs, but can be lowered for buffing, polishing, and other delicate applications that require lower RPMs. KLINGSPOR is offering the Spartan in a 5-inch and a 6-inch model. The backing pad connects with a male 5/16 24 thread. A variety of replacement backing pads are also available for any kind of disc that you want to use. The best part of the Spartan sander is how good it feels in your hand. The ergonomic design allows for a comfortable use. The trigger is also in a great placement. There is no clumsy movements to turn on the machine. The Spartan runs comfortably and with ease. The sander's weight relieves the need for lots of downward pressure. The tool removes material and glides across the workpiece with minimal effort. Call KLINGSPOR to reserve your Spartan sander today.
So there's a lot of advantages to that Spartan. I think my favorite aspect is that it's variable speed. You can slow it down or speed it up depending on the application, like our fusion foam, for example.
Absolutely.
But we did get a question sent in from a viewer.
I like it.
For you, Luke, and it is, what costs more, air or electric sanders, and which one is more aggressive?
Okay. Cost. Just like anything else in this world, it depends on the brand. You can get some high-end electric sanders that they are more expensive. Some pneumatic sanders you're going to pay a little bit more for, but usually pneumatic might be a little more on the expensive side, and altogether. But with pneumatic sanders, you're paying for longevity. That electric sander may not, almost will not last as long as that pneumatic sander. That pneumatic sander, if taken care of properly, following the tips that we saw in that video, will outlast an electric sander. So really, you're getting your money out of it. You're getting 250,000 miles out of that sander,
right,
unlike that other car that you're just leasing. You're not leasing that sander. But aggression, when it comes to aggression, that's all in the eye of the beholder. Whoever's using that sander.
What kind of sandpaper?
Absolutely. The application, what we're using it on. If you're using your random orbital on metal all the time, might not last as long. But the aggression, whoever's using it. If a whole workshop and everybody's sharing the same sander, everybody's got a different type of aggression with it. The amount of pressure you're putting down, things like that. A lot of personal characteristics go into aggression.
Right.
But with electric and pneumatic, you could probably, if you wanted to ramp it up a little bit with your air compressor, you could probably get a little more RPM out of it. which you cannot do with an electric. So if that's the way it was going, I don't know, that was I think that's how he worded that question. But yeah, personal use or jack up the air.
I like it. So thank you again for that question. So we're going to move on into the rest of the questions that we have gathered for the past few weeks. So again, if you're watching live, send that question into techtalk@klingspor.com, and we will get to those as they come in. So Luke, the first one we have here, the question is, I am stuck between an electric sander and a pneumatic sander. Which one do you recommend? We kind of touched on it a little bit.
Touched on it a little bit, absolutely. When you're really looking at this question, when you're trying to compare between electric and a pneumatic, a lot of it is how often, what type of person are you when it comes to sanding? Are you working in your workshop? Are you using your sander once a week? Are you is that what you do for a living? Are you doing it 8 hours a day, sanding 8 hours a day, all day long, really putting some use into it? For the everyday user, for that guy that's in the workshop, that's what he gets paid to do for a living, I would recommend a pneumatic sander. If you've got the proper equipment, the proper air supply, absolutely. That thing is going to last longer by adding your lube to it and on a daily basis and doing the right mechanical issues. That's going to last forever. For Joe Sixpack, who's sitting there in his workshop and he gets to sand in about once a week, go electric. Might be a little on the price point. It might be a little more economical. You're not going to have to do that much to it. You're not going to require more for it. It's going to be more price point. But again, either way you go, this is the great point. This is what we try to preach here at KLINGSPOR. Electric, pneumatic, we got the sandpaper to go on it. So
I like it.
We always got that. But it's a personal preference for some people, but there should never be a preference on paper. It's always KLINGSPOR.
That's right.
What do you want? Okay, the next question, we got one for Landon. We're going to get him into the game here. Which material works best for metal, such as stainless steel and aluminum?
Okay, so depending on whether you're wanting a belt or a disc, we have several different materials, but the key is, since those are both heat-sensitive metals, you're going to want something with a lubricant. Okay. Especially for belt, I would recommend something like our CS409. It does have the lubricant on the top coat there, so it's going to keep that temperature down roughly 20% so that your aluminum won't gum up or your stainless steel won't blow over. Because if that happens, you're just adding a step in the process. So depending on belt or disc, you're going to want at least a zirconia, and you could even sometimes move it into a ceramic just so it's lubricated. Just make sure you're using a lubricated product.
Gotcha.
All right, and the third one here we have for Luke is, can I put a 5-inch pad on a 6-inch sander?
Okay, I like it. This is a common misconception. No, you cannot. You do not want to put a 5-inch pad on a 6-inch sander or vice versa. People are like that. Oh, I can get this 5-inch sander a little less expensive than a 6-inch. I'll just buy a 6-inch pad and put it on there. No, nobody knows. No, and I'll tell you why. Underneath this backing pad, if you take it off, there is a motor. The motor is what goes in that forms that random orbit. It goes it goes around, goes up and down. But what causes that random orbit is that motor is weighted. There is a weight on there, and it's spinning that backing pad in a certain way. If you put in a bigger backing pad, it's going to throw off the weight, which will in turn put undue stress on that motor and will wear out your sander. While we're talking about that, yeah, underneath this backing pad, right here, this backing pad attaches with a 5/16 24 male stem. You put every sander comes with a backing pad wrench. Put the wrench in there, you hold it in place, unscrew it. We sell replacement pads for these. Dynabraids also use that 5/16 24 thread. Right. We sell the backing pads. If they do get damaged or are misused, we can sell you a PSA pad to go on this. Just because this sander right here comes with a hook and loop pad doesn't mean it has to stay hook and loop, but it needs to stay 5 inches. We do not want to switch the sizes. Sometimes with grinders and buffers, you could change them out because they're all 5/8 11 and things like that. Not with random orbital sanders. And underneath of them, on that motor, it is written there. It should be etched in there for 5-inch use only or 6 inches. Kind of like the serial number on a gun. It should never be scratched off or things like that. It's there to remind you exactly what size you got.
Nice. Good job.
We got one in here for an internet viewer sent it in. This is Mr. Gator. He wants to know what is the difference between steel wool pad and one of the KLINGSPOR non-woven pads?
Okay, it's a good question. So they're used pretty much, you can interchange them when it comes down to a lot of preference. So the steel wool pad is essentially just that. It's metal fibers that are pushed together, as opposed to our KLINGSPOR pads, our non-woven pads. They're made up of 3 components. So it's going to be a grain, a fiber, and then the resin glue that holds it all together. So steel wool does not have a true abrasive grain like aluminum oxide or silicon carbide. That's the key difference. So it will scratch a little different. Some people will use a non-woven instead because it doesn't leave steel fibers behind on the workpiece. It's a little cleaner to use a non-woven just because the fibers that are left after non-woven, they're easy to clean up and remove. So pure preference, the key difference is that the steel wool does not have a true abrasive grain. It's just the metal fibers leaving the scratch pattern.
Now, when we're talking steel wool, are we talking about the stuff that's under my kitchen sink?
Could be.
Okay. The same stuff we use to clean pans. But
That's right.
yeah,
Real
there's not
cleaners,
that
all
much
of it.
That's why your pans don't come up scratch.
That's right. It's very soft scratch. It does leave somewhat of a metal fiber. Some people like it, some people don't.
Gotcha.
All right, so next question for Luke that was sent in. I'm going through backing pads very quickly. Any suggestions?
Okay, this happens. Again, if you need those backing pads, come get them at KLINGSPOR, your local rep, or buy them online at buykliнгspor.com. But random orbital sanders are not meant to be used at an angle. They're meant to be used flat surfaces. It's flat, pad's flat, everything's flat, there's no roundness to it. But a lot of people, personally included, I'll take the blame for this every once in a while, you get impatient. You're working on that. Say you're taking the paint off of a table or something, you refinish it, and you just can't get all that paint or stain off. What do? You put it up at an angle, and you dig into it. You put it at 30 degrees. Yeah. Absolutely. You heel toe it. Or you put it like that, and you just, that's not great for the backing pad. You're going to start putting undue pressure. You can see that where it's actually bending. After a while, you're going to start tearing that backing pad. It's going to be, you start getting, once it starts tearing, then it's just going to keep going from there because it just keeps going around, keeps getting torn up. But it's not good for the backing pad. It's not good for your workpiece because when you do that, you're going to make hills and valleys. It's going to be unlevel. You're going to put an undue surface on that workpiece that you're trying to get, and it's going to start tearing up that backing pad and possibly start tearing up that motor, putting up some undue torque. That undue stress that motor has to go through. But that is one good reason if you might be way too aggressive with that sander. Another reason is, again, the tips we saw in the video earlier. It's good every once in a while to take that backing pad off, put that wrench that comes with your sander, spin it off, and clean it. Underneath this backing pad, you'll get a lot of dust and debris in there. And if we can keep it clean, again, this is going around. It's like getting leaves or dirt stuck in your wheel well of your car. You want to keep those things clean because it's going to keep going. And if there's something in there, it's going to impede it. It's going to keep trying to go and start tearing up. But
well, very nice. So moving on to another question sent in last week is I have a pneumatic sander, but it seems to lose power after a short amount of time. What can you say to help them?
Okay. This is a great question. When you're using a pneumatic sander, you're using some kind of air supply. Air supplies, I'm not talking about the little pancake compressors that you get at your local hardware store, to run those things. Pneumatic tools need a high capacity air supply to it and a constant high capacity air supply. So most people don't have this kind of luxury in their own personal workshop, in their garage, in the back of their house. But in main workshops, this is a good thing to take into account if you're going to buy a pneumatic sander. Do you have the air supply to run it? Right. So things that will cause this, if I have the right air supply, if I'm losing pressure, if I'm losing power to it, perhaps the air hose that I have linked to my air compressor is too long. If it's too long, at some point it'll start wearing down. You'll lose air pressure after so long. Another thing, if you're working in a workshop and there's several tools hooked up to that same compressor, other tools come on at the same time, that will lower the pressure. A great recommendation for this, you can get a air gauge. And it's always good, you can test the air pressure. It's always good not to test it at the tank, but to test it at your tool. Drag that cord out wherever you're working, plug it up to your tool, plug the air supply in there, plug the gauge up to your tool, air supply into the gauge, and get it. The Spartans and most of the Dynabrade tools, they run and require 90 PSI, pounds per square inch. That's what they need to run. You want to check your air supply, not just at the tool, but while it's running too. If you all of a sudden hit that switch and it drops to 70, we got an air supply issue. We need to bulk it up. We could make some adjustments on the air compressor or get another air compressor. Right. But those are a few things. Most people want to say if you're losing power, it could just be, it's always my tool, it's always my tool. It's not always the tool. Right. Could be outside things, but it's also, again, like our Spartan does. We have a valve here that adjusts the air pressure. Sometimes that switch might have gotten hit. It's something simple as that.
Yep, so a lot of important things to keep an eye on right there. Okay, so Luke, we got one more for you, and it's I'm looking for some kind of dust extraction. Any recommendations? I think we have just a thing.
We've got a video for this. Dust extraction, some kind of vacuum or some kind of self-generated. Unfortunately, this is where the Spartan, this is where it reaches its limit. We don't have any kind of dust extraction, anything like that. But when you have a random orbital sander, there's two kind of main dust extractions. You have something with a central vac. That's where I actually take a vacuum, plug it up to the sander, I turn the vacuum on before I use it. It sucks all the dust and debris through the. We carry a Dynabrade line. They have the mini Raptor vacs. They're fantastic. They're great out there. We got a lot of combos for them. But the other types of sanders that you'll find out there, that you probably have in your home, self-generated vacs. That means these are the sanders that usually have the little bags attached to them. As I use the sander, it causes a vacuum suction of the dust and debris, and it collects in that bag. We have a video that shows this. Let's go to the videotape.
Hey, hold on a second. Oh, hey, how's it going there? You snuck up on me.
I was just getting some sanding done with the vacuum on. Quite loud. But that vacuum helps keep all this dust and debris out of the workshop, and most importantly, out of my lungs. Do you know why discs have holes in them? Coated abrasive discs have holes in them for sanders that use vacuums or self-generated vacuums. It allows air to be drawn through there. It removes all the dust and debris from the workpiece and isolates it. And again, it keeps it out of our bodies. Safety is always first here at KLINGSPOR. Every sander out there on the market that has some type of dust extraction system has its own unique hole pattern and backing pad to go along with it. The great news is here at KLINGSPOR, you can get our high quality and high performance paper punched into any kind of hole pattern that fits your sander. This includes both PSA and hook and loop, which is the same price here at KLINGSPOR. To help further with dust extraction, I'm using a Dynabrade downdraft table and vacuum system. KLINGSPOR and Dynabrade have been partners for years, so you can use our high-quality coated abrasives on their high-performance tools. To get more information about dust extraction or hole patterns on coated abrasives, contact KLINGSPOR today.
So dust extraction, it just seems like the best possible way to keep your workshop a little bit cleaner. So great video there. So if there's nothing else you'd like to add to it, Luke, I believe that pretty much wraps up our show for the day. Tune into our next episode on November the 3rd. It'll be Danny and Luke. Danny and Nick, excuse me. They'll be working with cutoff wheels and thin cutoff wheels and all the different applications for those. So be sure and tune in, especially if you work in a metal shop. Again, I'll remind you to send any questions in the meantime into techtalks@klingspor.com. Again, I'm Landon.
I'm Luke.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.